Nanette V is from Ellicott City, Maryland. Her home group is Primetime New York, and she will speak on the consistent practice and application of Step 11 for 45 minutes, followed by a 20-minute Q&A. Nanette, it's an honour and a privilege to have you with us, and we thank you for setting aside the time to share your life with us. Welcome. Over to you, Nanette.
Okay. Wow. What a group. My name is Nan, which is short for Nanette. I like both names, actually. And I'm a grateful alcoholic. And my sobriety date is June 27th of 2007. And I had a awakening that changed my life in 2007. And I haven't been the same since. And I will say that part of that experience was moved by Step 11, which was something I was practicing before I even actually delved into all the steps. So Step 11 for me is, it's a vital lifeline. And I mean vital, because the most important relationship I will ever have is the one I have with God, the divine. I call it my lovership. And I've got to have this and develop this relationship minute to minute, consistently and constantly. So I was brought to my knees in 2007 by a power greater than myself. And I continue to cooperate. I always say God doesn't need my permission. God just needs my cooperation. For me, every single step, all 12 steps, the main principle is humility. That's the first one. So before I go into a little bit of qualifying, I invite all of you to just, for a moment, close your eyes, take a deep breath in, as we acknowledge the power and the presence of God's Spirit in the room, in the Zoom room, in our hearts, in the interior landscape of our own soul, our own mind, and that we are all here in the radiant light and the holy breath of God. I ask that God get the glory out of my vocal cords. I do not know what anyone needs in the room. I just surrender over this body temple to the power and presence of the eternal always, the I am presence, God within, God all around. God simply is, and we cease to speak. Amen. So, just to qualify, and I think there's some new people here, or people that haven't been in recovery for a super long time. I was suffering with a disease of alcoholism way before I picked up alcohol and other substances as well. This is singleness of purpose in alcohol, but I had addictions to other things too. So there was, through recovery, I've uncovered, discovered, discard, and forgive, that there was problems and isms there, and that alcohol was used to treat what was my basic core problem. And that was an idea that somehow I was separate from God. I was somehow lost, and I wasn't, one could say it's like I hated myself. but a sense that that was a learned idea in and of itself. Just not quite good enough. Didn't seem to fit in. Seemed to be restless underneath the skin. I also seemed to have a nervous system that was on the outside of my skin at an early age. And alcohol was used just so I can cope, just so I could connect, just so I could be okay. I'm very, very grateful to be alive today because this disease, and I was closeted in a lot of what I did. I almost died. And, it talks about jails. It takes us to jails, institutions, and death. I see alcoholism as a parasite looking for a host for transportation. The disease isn't me and it isn't you. It's a parasite. It's an imposter. And I come into these rooms here by God, ordained by God. These steps, every one of these steps, ordained by God. Bill was just an instrument used by God to bring us all a message, a delivery into eternal freedom. So I'm just really grateful to be alive, and I don't take that lightly each day. I don't remember where I came from. I don't remember I don't forget where this disease took me. But the memory of God is far greater. And the presence of God is far more superior. And that's what treats the disease. But the first step is that I'm powerless over this thing. I'm really powerless over this thing. This diseasiness. That's not a word. It's just a word that I use. I use it because the insanity of this disease called alcoholism. It's a self-talking, and my home group is Prime Time, which is focused in on emotional sobriety, how the disease shows up in the day that I'm in. Am I waking up and I'm having a negative thought about something or somebody? There's the diseasiness, the little parasite, wants to use me, wants to get me complaining about something. Today what I do is I don't see it as me. I look at it with non-judgmental awareness through my practice in step 11. And we're going to dive deep into this. Through my practice in step 11, I look at it and I don't start judging it and I don't start fighting it, because if I fight it, that's a problem. I make it real. And I'm not out to make that baby real. I'm out to call it out before my God and lay it on the altar where it becomes alchemized. And alchemy is nothing more than where God's radiant light basically loves it away. I think fighting with the negativity in the world, I used to do that, not today. Fighting with it is no use. It just is a waste of energy. I need to forgive it. Uncover, discover, discard, and forgive. I need to look at that. I'm the one who could choose to buy into that parasite who's the self-talking head, the mind, right? And today I look at it. I bring all thoughts before God, good and bad. Sometimes even when I have a good idea, it's still motivated by self. On page 64, being convinced that the various manifestations of self is what defeated me. The various manifestations of self driven by 100 forms of fear. So we go through these steps. Step 1, I'm powerless. Step 2 and step 11 have a powerful dance with each other, because step 11 is always going to show me where I am in step 2. Always. So step 2 is where I'm coming to believe. Eventually for me, the baseline in step 2, coming to believe, eventually it's a knowingness. It's a gnosis. It's a knowingness. I'm convinced this power is the only reality. But that's through the constant and consistent application of this recovery program. In step 10, all the steps, if you look at step 10, especially in the 12 and 12, all the steps are embodied in step 10. So we go into step 1 and step 2 and step 3. Kind of want to review this before we get into step 11. In the care of God, step 4, I'm looking at the various manifestations of self. I'm looking at the false character that was built. I'm looking at the dysfunctionality. I'm looking at the codependencies, the addictions I have to how I think you're supposed to be, how I think the world's supposed to be, all the concepts, the addictions I have to the outer to make me okay to the inner. Come to find out, everything on the outside is an outward picture of an inward condition. So now there's a big, big project. It's the gutting out. I call it exorcism. Some people might not like that word, but look at it as divine alchemy, exorcism. Let's clean this puppy out. Because then the nothingness of what Nanette is, then the everythingness of God can come through. I got to keep this empty. The emptier, the better. Nothingness, no thingness. And the ego doesn't want that. The disease doesn't want that. It wants to think that there's something out there that's causing me pain. Just a little bit. And it used to rub me that way, like, no, it really is that out there. Often when I would have things in my life that were showing up that appeared to be difficult, they were unresolved, unforgiven issues inside myself. Uncover, discover, discard, forgive. This is where we look at step 4, step 5, step 6, and 7. I don't call them character defects. I call them defenses, because for me they were defenses that were being developed in the false character early on. They were my safety devices, how I was going to protect myself. So it served me, so I thought. So I look at these things as false arms to be laid down, to be forgiven. For me, forgiveness is the gateway. You're going to hear me talk about that a lot. Because forgiveness is the great need of this world. Forgive. To give. To give what? To give God's love. God's love dispels all shadows. Because when there's light, there's no shadows. Perfect love casts out all fear. All. A-L-L. So in step 11, and I put in, I've been, step 11 is an area, that even before I got sober, something in the depths of my soul, there was a knowingness. And I did have a spiritual awakening when I was 5 years old, and something about that particular experience, it followed me through my life. It was like the hound of heaven wanted all of me, and I kept fighting because I was lost in so many dark illusions and shadows and this parasite, this diseasiness of alcoholism, it possessed me. I don't know about anybody else, but I know for myself, I literally drank against my own will. I'd be like, I don't want to. I really don't want to. But somehow I'm driving to the liquor store. Yeah? Who goes into a liquor store looking at how much volume, how much alcohol is in the bottle? I would go down and look at all. I did that. Seriously. And then I thought I was so fancy that I stopped doing that, and I started going into extracts from the health food store. That was my relapse, because I came in 1992. I had sobriety for a period of time. And then my relapse began in a health food store on extracts. And some of those extracts have, 60, 70% pure grain alcohol. Oh, it's organic alcohol. That the sickness of the disease thought that if it was organic, it would be okay. It's crazy. This is insanity. So anyway, step 11 and this conscious contact, there was something inside of me, and I believe everybody I've always worked with in sponsorship and people that I've spoken to in recovery, everyone, the fundamental idea of God is in every man, woman, and child. And everybody would always say to me, I always felt the presence, even in those that would long-time atheist or agnostic, maybe they didn't use the term God, but they'd use the term love. And they would say, I always sense this love in me. That's the place in all of us, that spark of the divine, the eternal always. It can't be raped. It can't even have a disease. It can't have conflict. It's eternal always. It always is. Pure love and perfect love is unwavering. It's power. It's pure power. So in step 11, we're getting in touch. We're actually saying yes to this power to run our life. Yes. So anyway, getting back to what I was sharing, for some reason I get asked to share a lot on step 11. It just sort of something that's been going on through the years, and the information I put in the chat is just a complete review of step 11 and all the steps. It's very simple. It's very easy. At the end of it is a ton of resources to develop this connection with the divine. We're each going to have different ways that happens. But I just wanted to read a little bit in step 11, and this time is going to go so fast because I'm looking at the clock here. So, and is somebody timing me? Oh, yeah, there it is. I can see it. All right, great. So in step 11, it says prayer and meditation, and we shouldn't be shy on this matter. Now, I put in there contemplation. For me, I'm a contemplative. It's my practice. In 2009, I had an experience, and just going to take a little side note. 2009, after I had come into the program in 2007, and it was like serious. It was so serious. It was so serious. When I had this awakening in 2007, I was so brought to my knees. I mean, literally. Everything got so bright, and I was pulled into the rooms, and I was pulled into a deep dive, a 21-week deep dive into the steps. And, but then in 2009, something was happening, and this is where emotional sobriety started happening in my life, where a letter on emotional sobriety came into my life, and I started going to a lot of workshops on emotional sobriety. But one morning I was waking up, honestly, they were like, I don't know, they were just like, I wake up and I was still like, I was in the middle of the triangle, but something like, something still wasn't right. And, like these thoughts were showing up as my eyes were opening, and I was praying, and I was, hold every thought captive, make it obedient to God, which comes from another book. It's written a little differently, but anyway, and I started asking, and you'll hear me say, Holy Spirit, you can change that into, truth, the spirit of truth, right-mindedness, holy-mindedness. I believe the truth about us is holiness. And I was praying, and I felt the presence pull me onto the floor, on my knees. And it wasn't like I heard an auditory voice, but it was like deeper into step 11. I could feel this deeper practice into step 11. It was like not words, but a sense. And then it was, you start your day on your knees to remind you you're not running the show. Now, I wasn't starting my day on my knees. I used to think it was kind of silly, and it was like religious, right? So This is, which I knew I had to forgive that, and I did a lot of, 4 steps on different religions, which I had peace with today. I'm very eclectic. I embrace all of it. But it was start on your knees, be a camel, start your day on your knees and end your day on your knees, and to surrender into this power. And I could feel this pressure. It was like, but not like a pressure, like it was gentle. It was loving. It was gentle. It was like I was overcome with a lot of love that was just pulling me and letting me know everything was going to be okay. And then at that point, I started almost instantaneously, I was introduced to something called centering prayer. I'm not saying that's for everybody, but it did become my path in 2009. It rocketed my entire recovery, and it was about entering into a contemplative practice of living from a place of silence. Now, it's not something that happens all at once. Definitely, I'm not here to tell you. Absolutely not. But my practice began in 2009 and developed thereafter. So anyway, it's talking about prayer. Page 86, it works if we have the proper attitude and work at it. Work at it. I like to say cooperate. That was my path, family. It may not be your path. It may not. I know some people that, they, as long as they do certain readings in the morning and maybe 5 minutes of some type of meditation or guided meditation, I really don't know about anybody else's walk. When I'm walking with somebody, I'm sponsoring another person. I don't like the term sponsorship, honestly, because I don't believe in higher up, or I always feel the word sponsor is like somebody's up and somebody's, I like to see it. We walk shoulder to shoulder. Really, we walk shoulder to shoulder, and we're helpers. We're sharers of God. We share God with each other. That's how I see it. But I always say, don't take my hand. If you do take my hand, I'm going to put it in God's hand so that you can find what practice is going to work for you. I don't know what it's going to be for somebody else. I just know this is my path. It's been given me, and that's that. So I don't question it anymore. And so that's just a little aside for personally. We are going to do a guided meditation. It's something that part of my seed assignment in this world is to offer guided meditations. It's something that happened. I'm not going to tell you it's something I went and looked for. It's something that just happens. So it just gets offered up. So I just want to go into this. This is something that I find in step 11, and this is where the consistency and the constancy, the disease of alcoholism, in my view, is repetitive. The insane voice in the head talking to itself is repetitive. The wagon full of monkeys, they're repetitive. You got a resentment monkey, you got an angry monkey, you got a jealous monkey, you got a sad monkey, you got a depressed monkey. I don't know about anybody else, but I know the wagon full of monkeys, they all run the same script. They never change they just never change their script. It's always the same. And in prime time, what we do is I'll write it out, like the repetitive patterns. I'll write it all out, and I'm like, and then when I write it out, again, it's like an exorcism, and I look at it, it's like, oh my God, it's a bunch of lies. And then it gets exposed to the light of God. So the practice in step 11, prayer every day, meditation, contemplative. I like to see step 11 as an ongoing meditation in my life. In other words, my day-to-day practice is meditation. How am I bringing God into this situation? Am I seeing God? Am I seeing the God in you? Or am I seeing the ego in you? Because if I'm seeing the ego, it's because it's the ego. I'm choosing with the ego. I'm choosing with fear, not love. So the practicing in step 11 is the treatment to the diseasiness of the alcoholism, which is repetitive. The repetitive patterns of codependency, false dependencies, hobbling demands, negative thinking. It's deep mental. It's a mental activity. It's not you. It's not me. It's in the system here, by the way. And when I'm speaking to the direct mind, the mind that is the truth in all of us. So we have a collective deal here. We've got a dualistic system here, and it needs to be treated with only God. So step 11 in the consistency and the practice, these nightly reviews, because it's talking about the nightly reviews here on page 86. Now, I have several different ways that I do it. I do have the 12 questions. Were we resentful, selfish, dishonest, afraid? Do we owe an apology? Have we kept a secret that we need to tell somebody right away? Were we kind and loving? And it says right here, have we kept something to ourselves that we should tell somebody at once? Now, when I look at that in the big book, it says at once. It means now. That's what I love about my home group. Prime time is when? Now. When's prime time? Prime, the best time, is now. It needs to be talked about now. Hold on to nothing. Let my body be a clean and empty vessel. And it's not easy, because sometimes, man, some of the deluge of stuff that starts coming up in the unconscious, be awake and aware to it and be willing to go through it. That's when the rubber really hits the road. So it says, were we kind and loving to all? All. Like the other day, for example, to be transparent. I've had this thing going on with a particular medical bill. LabCorp went and overcharged me. Over $1,000 overcharged. It's just like crazy. It's in the system, and today we're dealing with software. So when we talk to customer service, how many times does everybody get really happy about talking to customer service? How do I bring God into talking to customer service? Wow. So the other day I had to talk to somebody in customer service, and they were talking so fast. I was getting, the angry monkey was starting to jump on me. The angry monkey was like, "Rrr," and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what they're saying. Oh my gosh, they're talking, and I couldn't even. So I had to breathe a lot, and I had to pray a lot, and I realized that maybe I wasn't going to get anywhere at that time, which I didn't. So the call had to end. I had to take a breather, and then I had to call back later on. It all did work out. But this is what we deal with in this world today of technology and an overstimulated world. So was I kind and loving to all? Now, I didn't say anything nasty to the customer service person, but I will tell you this. My breathing was not exactly loving. Just saying. So it's sort of like, right? So it's got to go on my inventory at night. Non-judgmental awareness. My big practice in step 11 and my contemplative practice. Non-judgmental awareness. Nan, the action figure, was breathing heavy into the phone on customer service just to let her know I was a little ticked. Because you see, I'm all spiritual and a bag of chips. I'm not going to say anything, but I'm going to breathe really heavy. it did go on my inventory, and I did laugh at it. I had to forgive it. I did apologize to her, because, I don't know if she picked up the breathing or not. I'm not really certain about it. Either way. So what could I have done better? Well, I could have not have breathed so heavy. Were we thinking of ourselves most of the time? Or were we thinking of what we could do for others, of what we could pack into the stream of life? See, this is the thing with the ism. And the practicing of prayer and meditation counterbalances it so I can see it. So the head, the deep mental groove, the ego is getting all righteous. LabCorp, you are dumb, you're stupid, you overcharged me. And now that's consuming some of my thought life. Now I've got LabCorp on the throne and not God. See how subtle that is? And I could say, well, everybody does it. It's just the way of the world. People are going to be ticked off at these things. You see, the little foxes for me spoil the vine. And it's these little pebbles in the shoe that I can't stand anymore. If I'm going to be a vessel, I need to look at that stuff. And I need to look how quick this world, these codependencies, can take me down. Do you want the red pill or do you want the blue pill, says Morpheus. The blue pill, I wake up. The red pill, I go down the rabbit hole of the ego pain body. And it's addicting. And I had to look at that. I had to look at the end of the day, am I still addicted to a little bit of adrenaline? Am I still addicted to a little bit of like, I get a rush about getting a little angry and getting a little righteous over LabCorp because they did, after all, make a mistake. $1,555. Just saying. See how I remembered that? Sometimes I can't remember my name, but I'll remember that, right? So that's the disease. And I get to look at it and I get to say, that's the disease. But that's not the reality of what I am. God is, and we cease to speak. Because God is. Everything else going on is illusion. And today, I really experience that. Now, that doesn't mean you walk around as if you don't take any action. That's not what I'm saying. This power is the greater power. The other is the imposter. And I got to look at and so the part of this inventory, it says, was I thinking of myself, or were we thinking of what we could do for others, what we could pack into the stream of life? And then again, it says we must be careful not to drift into worry or remorse or morbid reflection. Non-judgmental awareness. My practice is I rest with the Holy Spirit. I rest and I watch the cinema. I watch when I fall asleep. I watch. Who's watching? I rest in the light, not the ego, the light. What's keeping me sober? I'm not breathing myself right now. Something greater than me is breathing me in this holy instant of release. In this holy instant. So, I basically write out every night. I do these questions. Are there some nights that I miss? Yes, but not often. I will say most. Sometimes it's 7 days a week for many weeks, and then sometimes I'll miss a day or two. So I don't want anybody to think it's not about perfection, but this is, sometimes what will happen is, I really get exhausted, something, and that's usually when, or maybe really not much was happening, but I have another review that I do. I might read that real quick, that I do, and I do it. It might seem, family of mighty companions. It might seem like it's a lot as I'm talking about step 11, and right now we're just talking about the inventory piece. It's really not when you think about the way the diseasiness is of alcoholism. It's insane. The wagon full of monkeys, they're always da-da-da-da-da-da. So the inventory is compared to the insane voice in the head that's so spinning around like a disco ball. This is basically really not a lot. You know, it really isn't. But I have questions I ask. I just review, and these I just review because it's a combination of some other programs. I'm very, very committed to CODA. It's another program that I work in, Al-Anon and ACA, but mainly I'm going to say CODA. But I answer questions like, did I take care of myself physically today? Because that's going to affect my sobriety. Did I take care of myself emotionally today? Because that's going to affect how I'm working with you. Did I take care of myself spiritually today? Did I isolate? Did I reach out to others? Did I ask for help when I needed it? Taking an honest look at my motivations, did I take any action aimed at controlling? Was I controlling, trying to control a situation or a person? How did I feel today? Am I experiencing any kind of fear or shame or guilt? Fear, guilt, and shame is the root of the diseasiness. Fear, guilt, and shame is the root of the diseasiness. It's where the codependency started, and then the alcohol got introduced. But it started with the fear, guilt, and shame. The dysfunction that was coming through family systems, trauma. Yes, indeed. Did I obsess on another person today or a problem? Did I obsess on another person or problem? Did I treat myself with love and respect today? If I'm not treating myself with love and respect today, I'm not treating you with love and respect. And then the last question is, do I need to make amends to myself or someone else? If so, what is my plan of action? And I have all this, I've got a lot of, I didn't put everything in the chat. I'll put my email in the chat. If anybody wants to email me that I can send what I just went over, I can do that. Feel free to email me. I'll get that in the chat. So that's a nightly review, but also in the early days, they were doing that in the morning. It talks about upon awakening, looking at the 24 hours ahead, that the 24 hours ahead is going to be divorced of self, of dishonesty, of obsession, of, self-pity, of self-seeking. And so in the early morning, I start my day on my knees. I ask, usually for me, let me bless others and change me, oh God. Because the real truth of the matter is, it's the interior landscape of my own soul, between myself and God, that however I'm seeing the world is what's in there at an unconscious level. I think it's important, and it talks about meditation in here, and I'm not going to go into all of it because I don't have much time, and I would like to do a brief little meditation. On page 87 and 88, it's talking about prayer and meditation, joining with others in prayer and meditation, getting our thought life on a plane of inspiration, in spirit, inspiration. So it's important for me to commit a life to spirit-led living. So it's important for me what's going to work. So for me in the morning, it's prayer and meditation. I do my centering prayer in the morning. Well, I get my cup of coffee and then I go into my meditation room and I do my centering prayer. And it can be anywhere from, it's usually 20 and 20 and then 20 It could be an hour a day. It could be 40 a day. I won't go into all of that. But basically it is for me, and again, for me, is entering into the silence of what I am, underneath all of that unconscious stuff that needs to be brought to the light. And there's things that are there as I go on in recovery. Uncover, discover, discard, and forgive. More will be revealed. Let me tell you, the past 7 years, and especially this year in January, I have been going through a gutting out at a level that I have never experienced at 60. I'm 65. And I'm going through a level of gutting out like the deluge of what is in the darkened areas in the soulish realm, in the unconscious, is being unearthed. And I'm sitting there looking at it. So in the practicing of prayer and meditation, contemplation is where we're entering into a place to start to get quiet. For me, meditation, prayer is something, true prayer, honestly, and it's going to be hard to get into all of this because this is really, in talking about step 11 and the consistency and constancy, it could be a 3-hour workshop for sure. Very simply, 3-hour workshop to really deep dive into it, to look at prayer. What is true prayer? True prayer is really not asking for anything. Why? Because I've been given everything. I've been given the keys to the kingdom. Everything's already there. True prayer is really gratitude. Undo me, oh God, undo everything. Undo all of the obstacles in the way between my relationship, between me and God. So what do I need to ask for? If I'm asking for one thing, I'm coming from a place of lack. That's my practice today. Now, some people would say, oh, I got to ask for this and I got to ask for that. I'm thanking you, God, for my sobriety. I'm thanking you, God, for the breath you're giving me. I'm thanking you for good health. I'm thanking you for the abundance. I'm thanking you for healthy relationships. Thank you for delivering me. Because in truth, it's already done at the realm of spirit. At the realm of spirit. And yet, the ego will say, yeah, but, because it wants to take me down, taking the red pill. So in meditation, really the goal of all meditation is to enter into stillness, the still place, where we can get silent. Every time, family, this is the truth. I've been a practicer of the prayer and meditation piece for a long, long time and studied with a lot of different beautiful, beautiful coaches and teachers and advisors and spiritual directors. And it's all about entering into the silence. If I can enter into the silence, a pure silence for 1 minute even, it literally shaves off all of the egoic negative patterns. It starts to shave off patterns of codependency. It starts to shave off patterns of depression and it literally starts to, it's like this purification that happens. It's so mysterious. It's so mysterious. But the more working in the silence. Now, there is always, I don't want to say a warning because that wouldn't be correct, but there is an awareness that the deeper you go into silence, that there can be, all of a sudden, you'll start having a memory or some of those negative thoughts of the guilt that has gripped the unconscious will start to come up. And you'll be like, what's that? And that's what's been happening this year as I've gone deeper into centering prayer. Some dark stuff has come up and I'm like, oh my goodness. Thank you. And what do I do with it? I do nothing. I invite it into the light, to the radiant light of God. Don't fight. I don't fight with it. And that dissolves it. By the way, once it dissolves it, doesn't come back. It's been my experience. It just dissolves it. It's incredible. This is important. This practicing in step 11. I'm only looking for knowledge of God's will. And God's giving me the power to carry it out. Not coming from me, coming through me. So that's amazing to me. That is really, really, truly amazing to me. That it's through this surrender into the silence. Now, I have about not even 4 minutes. So we're going to do a 3-minute meditation. All right. So I'd like everyone just to close your eyes. I am going to be using a background music. And I just, in this sacred moment, let us just all come. There's been talking you've been hearing. Let us just close our eyes as we gently settle in to the holy breath of God breathing us in this holy instant. We are safe. We are loved. We are being breathed. Take a deep breath in and allow your muscles to soften. As you rest deeply in the sacred silence, in you, God's first language is a language of sacred silence. Allow the radiant light within this silence to fill every fiber of your being. God's presence is available right here. And forever. You are the very love of God. All that the divine is, you are. And we rest in the truth of perfect love. Be still before this love. And it will direct you in every area of your life. Take a deep breath in, breathing in the holy breath of God. Breathing in the holy breath of God. Exhaling out gratitude. Then you can gently, gently, gently open your eyes. Gently open your eyes and allow seeing to happen. No judgment, no thought. Just allow seeing to happen. I love all of you, beautiful spirits that are here. I thank you for being here. I'll post my information in the chat. You're welcome to contact me. And this is one of those steps that, it would be awesome just to have like hours to really deep dive into it. So I thank you and I bless you.
Hi, Andrew, alcoholic. Does anyone want to ask Nanette a question? If so, please raise your digital hand. I've had a question just come through on chat. And the question is, what does your spiritual breakfast look like, Nanette?
My spiritual breakfast, so I first thing is a prayer. I wake up in prayer. I think it's something that I get in centering prayer. You start to get prayed through. It's sort of something that happens. A centering word starts to pray through you. And I get up and I usually do get a cup of coffee, and I wake up in silence, and I make a cup of coffee for my husband, and we both kind of be in silence. And then I go into my prayer meditation room, and the first thing I do is my centering prayer practice. Sometimes there may be something, if I happen to turn my phone on, which sometimes I do, there might be something that comes in and I just don't get to it right away unless it's something that's urgent. And sometimes that does happen. Might be a sponsee, something, whatever. But so it is centering prayer first thing. The other practice is I'm a Course in Miracles practitioner and facilitator, and I'm going through all the lessons of A Course in Miracles this year. So I'm committed to it. So I practice A Course in Miracles. I'll read from the 24-hour book. I like to take a line from the big book and meditate on that as well. And also I read from Coda literature. I usually read from Coda literature. Sometimes I'll meditate on, just kind of contemplate one of the Coda patterns of recovery. So I incorporate that with it as well, and as the Spirit guides me, and sometimes also the daily reflections. So I hope that, and that's usually at least a good hour. So I hope that answers.
Thank you very much there, Nanette. Do you want to come in with your question there, Veronica?
Yes, absolutely. Veronica, grateful recovered alcoholic. Thank you so much, Nanette, for your great share. I'm so glad I got to hear you today. for the second time. My question is about the spiritual awakening that you described at the beginning of your talk. The step 11. It sounded like it happened very early in sobriety. Most of us tend to have a spiritual awakening of the educational variety that comes as a result of working the steps. But it seems like you kind of fast tracked to a spiritual awakening, starting step 11 early. Just what was that like, and what kind of practices were you doing? If you can describe what that experience was like, I really appreciate you. Thank you so much, Nanette.
Yeah, thank you. And I thank you for asking that. I usually don't talk about it too much. I had sobriety for a period of time. I never went through the steps. I did have a practice, and I was, practicing, course and scriptures and things like that early on, and throughout. Prior to going into the 12 steps and the Holy Spirit literally just moving me right into it, I had deep dived into an intensive in A Course in Miracles 6 months prior. I actually had stopped the drinking. I had a spiritual awakening. Actually, it was in December of 2006. It was on the end of December, right after Christmas. The alcohol was removed. I weaned off of sleeping pills and benzodiazepines. I was not abusing them, but I medically weaned off of them. I didn't go off of all of it all at once. So I was weaning off under medical advice. So during that time, I had not gone back to AA, but I was deeply, deeply committed to advanced practice and forgiveness and A Course in Miracles, and something was happening. I was meditating hours a day. And then in 2007, it was a lightning bolt. I wouldn't be able to go through all of the what all happened, but I was overcome in the spirit. I had an experience where everything was just like literally God was in everything, love was in everything, and that the only thing that really did exist is God's love. It probably wouldn't be the platform to go into it too deeply, but I mean, I was brought to my knees, and I was really brought to the nothingness of what I am, and the Spirit got, I was communicated to that I could never replace the big book with something else. A Course in Miracles was to be added to it, but it was never to replace the big book, and that was made very clear to me. It was made super clear to me in 2007, and that I needed the steps, and they were going to be a way of life for me, and everything else I would enlarge my spiritual condition on a daily basis. So there was that awakening, and it was a fast track. It was super fast. I wouldn't highly, it took a lot out of me physically, so I'm not going to go into all of that. I hope that answers your question, though.
Thank you very much there. Do you want to come in there, Ellie?
Hello, my name is Ellie or Eli, either one's fine. I am a grateful recovered alcoholic. Thank you so much for your share, for your stories. Beautiful, and I learned so many things. But the question that I had was, so I am a brand new to sponsoring. Like I have one sponsee and working on another one, and you talked about how the path that you have for you might not be the same path as other people in AA. And so I was just wondering, as a sponsor of these new people, what I could do, in your opinion, to help them find their path. Like, how can I help guide them to find that path that they need to become that recovered alcoholic?
Beautiful, beautiful question. I love it. Thank you so much. I put in the chat at the end of the file I put in there all of the different things that could to be explored, like websites, like there's two-way prayer, there's all these things on YouTube. Really what I do with sponsees is I begin to ask them questions. What speaks to you? What calls? Is it, if it is in step 11, is it guided meditations? Is it a 2-minute meditation? Is it a 5-minute meditation? Maybe it could be this. I start to ask them what, I want to find out what, it brings them joy. Cause that's going to kind of give me information as to what, and give them information as to what direction. I know some people that they're like, I don't want to meditate and especially if they're new. And I say, how about for 2 minutes? Just 2 minutes. You just say, set a timer for 2 minutes. I love you, God. I thank you, God. I love you, God. I thank you, God. Simple. Can't go wrong with that. Or just make your practice all day long. I thank you for everything, So you want to lead them to YouTube channels, mindfulness meditation. There's a great one out there called Pneuma Breath. I know, we want to be quick to see where religious people are right, but they got a great YouTube channel, all kinds of meditations. Pneuma Breath. I love it. I think I put that in there. So, find out what they like, and let them get creative. Invite them, have some fun with it, because that makes them want to do step 11. Have some fun with it. Yeah. Hope that's...
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Hi there, Rosa, do you want to come in there with your question? And Tony will be our last hand for the questions tonight.
Thank you, Andrew. And thank you, Nanette. What a fantastic share. You are like spring of fresh water of spirituality. It's just amazing listening to you. My question is fairly simple, because our life, as spiritual as we are, life is nevertheless filled with trivia, because we have to interact with other people, and other people not necessarily, well, let's put them, they're agnostic, quite a few. So my question is, what does committing your life to the life of spirit involve on a daily basis? How do you maintain this commitment in the face of everyday challenges?
Right.
Like somebody, that you told us about the customer service. Today I experienced somebody sat on my rear with the car aggressively, very aggressively. And we shouldn't allow that. So thank you.
Yeah. First off, one of my practices is the non-judgmental awareness. So it doesn't mean I won't feel. It doesn't mean I won't experience the world of duality. In fact, I will. It's just that there's a tool. And I recognize that everything is a holy instant of release, because everyone is there to help me get free. And as I release them, I release myself. So I think that in a simple terms, what it looks like is always recognizing it's not me, the action figure, Nan. There's a bigger picture going on. There's just one mind. And if I stay in a myopic view, it's when I'm in the selfing. It's when I'm in the selfing that I'm taking the red pill and I'm going down a rabbit hole. So it's the remembering. Some of my life and a lot of what has happened is the excruciating turmoil and pain, and the dark night of the soul was so unbearable that when the scorecards read 0, you recognize the only place to live is spirit. There's an experience like this whole world, it's chicken poop. The world of finite, it says in our big book, we're going to trust in the infinite, not the finite. Well, I got to be convinced of that. Unfortunately, I had to learn the hard way. I had to learn the very hard way. And unfortunately, I don't think that has to be everybody's path. I believe that if we just start realizing that that's an opportunity to forgive, either I'm coming from love or I'm coming from fear. And if I'm seeing somebody and like that person, like it's customer service, well, it's the unconscious guilt that's in me that I'm projecting onto her. She's guilty. It's her. Yeah, no. My freedom is, no, there's nobody out there. Now that's a non-dual phrase, but that's the truth of our reality. Non-duality isn't something you teach. It's something is what you are. There's only one of us here. So, that's what it looks like. And I've, again, this has been a year of, whoa, let me tell you, wowee. It's practice. That's why it's consistent practice. And sometimes it'll seem like you're going through a dark night of the soul. Hallelujah. I want God and only God. There you have it. Hope that answers.
Thank you very much there. Over to you there, Tony. Thank you.
Hi, Tony, alcoholic. Every morning I ask God to guide my thoughts and intuitions. But regarding intuition, how do you tune into that? And how do you know the difference between God's voice and my own inner voice, my ego? How do you know the difference between God's voice and my ego?
Oh, wow. Really, I wish we had 3 hours because I didn't get to talk about my favorite topic, and that is the first fruits of all of this is living a life of intuition. Living an inspired life. That's one of my YouTube channel things is be inspired. Living a life of intuition. How do you tell the difference? This has been a passion for me in this lifetime, following intuition, because one of the things, and early on, I've worked with so many intuitives and worked in that field, and it seems like everybody in that field is all recovering addicts and alcoholics, like all of them, because it's like they were intuitive from the get-go and they didn't know how to trust it and live by it. One of the things I know deep inside, intuition, there's a discernment process where it's coming up from the depths. It's at a physical body level, it's never around here. And it's never around thought. It's something that's organic and unexplainable, and it'll keep presenting itself in like the spirit. There's a discernment process where it'll keep validating its truth. And I will, Holy Spirit, correct all errors within my mind. Let your spirit guide me clearly. I only desire inspiration, and I say it. I speak it out. I speak it out of my mouth. And so intuition is usually something, it's gut. It's in the gut area. There's the divine brain in there. And so usually if something is repetitive and if there's anxiety around it, although sometimes anxiety can be a symbol that I'm not listening to it, it's fine tuning that. There's a lot to it, but normally it's never coming from this frequency here. It's usually, like the other day, it was like something was happening and my husband's like, how did that, I'm like, it's a knowing. There's usually no thought with it. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much there. Babe, do you want to come and ask a question there?
Sure. Hey, kid, babe, alcoholic. Nanette, that was beautiful. It's nice getting older. We get to spend a lot more time in meditation and contemplation. And I can go spiraling off into ontological quagmires. I just sent out a little text to all my friends on that. I catch things. You said prayer is not asking. But we wake up, you said, open me. I'm asking to be open. That's where my brain takes me. I am asking, but I'm not asking. I'm praying without words. I live this life, but I don't know. I'm thinking, geez, my maple tree is singing its praises to God, and the weird seem to be the only species to try to figure it out. But we can't help it. I love you touched on non-dualism. That is the key to it. all these paradoxes in life? The answer is both. And that's where we can relax. My question is, because I'm coming up with a new concept, I'd like to hear yours. Do you see, and what is the difference between meditation and contemplation?
Yeah. Well, contemplative is I think they kiss each other is what it is. They kiss each other. I think contemplative practice goes deeper into the silence, where meditation, guided meditation, there may be words and focusing in on breath, that type of thing. But I think the contemplative is where dipping into the sacred silence, into that nothingness, that gap. And then it's sort of the stillness. And then a lot of contemplative work, and the contemplative monks, they'll just be in nature staring at a blade of grass, but silent within that. So I think meditation might be maybe a little more activity, whereas contemplative, contemplative is silent. And I always used to hear Mark Houston say when he was around, silence is the first language of God. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you to everyone who participated in the Q&A session today, and thank you very much, Nanette, for taking time out of your day and coming to share with us today. I would now like to hand the meeting back to Jax.